Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. This is Leveraging Easy Language. It's a series we do here in the Masterclass to help you with the Easy Language programming. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities, and it's a pleasure to be doing this class. Today, I thought it would be very cool to do a custom study and walk you through creating this study from scratch. A lot of times, we hear about Easy Language. We know that it's the code that TradeStation uses to run every single study and every single strategy. But if we're new to TradeStation, it's kind of challenging to understand how it's done, how to get started. So it's always good to refresh some of those concepts and be sure that we are all in line and that we can all, modify studies and create, studies of our own as well. So before we get started, here's the usual disclosures. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only. It is not a recommendation of TradeStation. Also, that active trading is not suitable for everyone, and that past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. For additional information on these disclosures, visit the link that's right there on the PowerPoint slide, www.tradestation.com/important-information. All right, let's go ahead and jump over here to the TradeStation platform. And well, first of all, I want to make sure that there's no questions related to Easy Language, or at least, questions that I can answer. Usually we have our in-house expert, John Brook, to answer questions that are a little bit more complex. I thought that today he was going to be with us, and that's why if you look at the schedule, it says that we have John Brook, but I was mistaken. We had John Brook last week, so we don't get to see him until next week. He appears in the TradeStation Masterclass bi-weekly, so today is not the day that he shows up, but we'll still make it a class. We'll still, drill down on some of the concepts that you can analyze. But first of all, I want to make sure that we have no questions unanswered this class. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit those questions there in the chat. The chat is open. Make sure that you set the chat windows to everyone so that we can all see your comments and follow along. And I'm also giving you guys the ability to unmute microphones if that's what you prefer. I do ask that you keep those microphones muted so that we don't get any background noise, okay? Thank you guys for showing up. Let's go ahead and talk about what are some of the things that we can do with Easy Language. Let me set up a chart analysis first. All right, and let me switch this to a stock. All right, this is a 5-minute chart of Apple. I'm going to go to a daily time frame, and I'm going to add a study, one of the studies that is supplied with TradeStation. So let me add a study, and it's going to be just a simple moving average. Let's set that moving average to 50 days. All right. So it's a 50-bar moving average. I think that everyone here understands the way that technical studies are calculated in TradeStation. When you set the parameter to 50, we're taking 50 candles and doing the calculations. So that parameter that you're putting in is not days, it's actually number of candles. Which, on a daily bar, of course, every candle represents a day. So entering a 50 is like saying 50 days. And 50 days in the chart, of course, are going to be 50 trading days. And that's something that we also need to be aware of. There's no candles on weekends. There's no candles on holidays. So when we say 50, it's actually going back 50 trading days. So this is a 50-bar moving average being calculated for Apple and any other security or any other symbol that we plug here on the chart. The moving average right now, it's 164.07. You can see the value on the far right. The current price of Apple is 144.20, so we are below the stock's 50-day moving average. So It's more of a bearish mode. But sometimes it's important to know how far away from that 50-day moving average the stock is. And I'm using 50-day moving average just as an example, because I mean, everybody follows different parameters. And if you are used to a certain parameter, then that's the parameter that I want you to use. I'm using 50 because it's a common, moving average used in a lot of strategies. But we have other moving averages that are used as well, like exponential moving averages that use some of the Fibonacci numbers. But let's use just a simple moving average with a 50 bar period average, which it's kind of standard. And that way we can make the calculations a little bit easier. But just think about all the different possibilities here. So we're talking about the distance of the current trading price from that 50-day average, and be able to at least, look for stocks or scan for symbols that are approaching or that are close to this the 50-day moving average, which is, sometimes an important event, something that is significant in the life of a stock. If you want to know which stocks are approaching a significant level based on whatever calculation it is, in this case, we're using moving averages, then this is the type of calculation that I'm talking about, measuring that distance. And we can measure that distance on a net value, or the way that I prefer is, equalizing this using percentages so that we can scan through the markets. Because I can, calculate the difference here, and I can say, well, Apple right now, it's about, $20 and change away from its 50-day moving average. I mean, that I can do in my head because that's easy math. But the $20 difference for Apple, it's not going to translate well when we compare it to another stock. For example, if I switch this to Twitter, of course, Twitter right here is above its 50-day moving average, but it's only about, $3 away from its moving average. So in order for us to compare how close is Twitter and how close is Apple to their 50-day moving average, we have to convert that difference into a percentage. We don't have an indicator that does that yet. I mean, and I thought that it would be a nice exercise for us to create that type of calculation and measure that distance. So let's go ahead and take a look. First of all, I'm going to create a custom indicator. So I'm going to go to my Easylanguage development environment. Let's go here to apps. Click on Easylanguage. And I'm going to go here to this little drop down, and I'm opening up or creating a new indicator. It's asking me for a name. I'm going to give this my prefix of !JN. That's how I usually start my custom studies. You can start your custom studies with any prefix and get it into the habit of using prefixes so that everything that you modify and everything that you create is grouped together. Remember that the studies inside of TradeStation are going to be sorted in alphabetical order. So as long as you use the same prefix, everything will be grouped. And usually, using a cookie character, a special character like an exclamation mark or an @ sign or a pound sign, those type of characters usually get sorted to the top of the list. So it just makes it easier to find your custom work. So this is going to be !JN, and I'm going to call this distance, percent distance from MA. I know that's a long name. I can add a short name if I want to. Usually a short name is convenient if you're putting this on radar screen. I can call this percent. That's my short name, percent MA. In my mind, I know what it is. I can give myself a little bit of a note. This is the distance of the current trading price from a moving average. Oh, I can't. It's limited. Okay. So let me not do a full-blown explanation. Distance from current price to MA expressed in percent. Okay. Excellent. So I'm going to do, first of all, I want this indicator to have a little bit of flexibility. I know that I started off saying that I wanted a 50-bar moving average, but I don't know. Who knows if then I want to measure the distance from a 100-day moving average. So let's go here, and in the inputs, I'm going to create an input that's MA length, that's moving average length, and I'm going to start it off at 50 because that's the example that I'm using at the moment, So let's go ahead and calculate the moving average. And I'm going to, this calculation of the moving average, I'm going to store in what we call a variable. A variable is just it's a container that holds values. And the reason why I want to store the calculation of the moving average inside of a container is that it's easier to reference at a later time. If we're going to reference the value to set up an alert, if we're going to reference the value to plot it, whatever the reason is, it just so much more convenient to store the calculation in a variable. So my variable is going to be moving average, MA. And we can be a little bit more specific. We can do SMA if this is going to be a simple moving average. My SMA is going to be equal to the average of the close for a period of MA length. That's my calculation. That's the average function. The average function, if you've been with TradeStation sometime and attending some of my programming classes, you know that average is the function to calculate a simple average. And inside parentheses, we have to tell it what is the value that we want to average. In this case, I just want to average the closing prices of those candles. And for how long? What's the period? In this case, it's 50 because we already declared as an input up here. But now, since we're using this input name, by having this flexibility as an input, just plugs in that value that we put into the inputs, okay? Now, now we have to calculate what the difference is from the closing price to the moving average, right? So let me see how I call this. Difference MA to close. And I know that's just a word that I just made up, difference moving average to close. And this is just going to be a straight calculation, which is close minus SMA. Now this word that or these two words, because this is one and this is another one that I'm making up, they need to be declared as variables. Otherwise, TradeStation Easylanguage doesn't know what they are or doesn't know that they exist. And if I try to verify, the first thing that it says is, oh, this is an unknown identifier because it doesn't know what it is. What's SMA? In Easylanguage, it doesn't mean anything. I know that SMA stands for simple moving average, but Easylanguage doesn't know that. So I'm going to have a line here that declares these words because I'm going to use them. I want to use them, and that's the beauty of a variable line that I can just create my own words and introduce them in the language. So SMA is going to be a numeric variable. So that's the way that we initialize it to a number, just adding parentheses and a number. And diff MA close is also going to be numeric. All right. So once we have this difference, I'm going to calculate the percent MA or close to MA. So I should say that also here, difference from the close to MA. That way, it makes a little bit more sense. These can be descriptive names. And as you write Easylanguage, we always recommend that they make sense to you so that when you read the code, oh, I know what this is trying to do. So since we changed the name here, we have to change it up here. And we added a new one, which is percent close to MA. And I'm just going to add it up here. These are all numeric. And the way that we calculate a percentage is taking the difference of the close to the moving average and dividing it by the moving average, right? So that should do it. I'm always going to double check my math to make sure that this is correct. So I take the difference and divide it by the starting point to see how far away is that difference. And I'm going to multiply this by 100 because once I do the division, I'll get the percentage expressed in a decimal format, and I want to make sure that this is expressed as a percentage. So now I'm going to plot that percent close to moving average, and this is my percent to moving average. All right. Let me see what this looks like. I want to verify this. It verifies well. I mean, I have no verification errors. You can see that at the bottom in the print log. But let me go ahead and go to properties first. I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to, first of all, go to the chart style, because percent MA, I want it to be, do I want it to be a line on a chart? Do I want it to be a histogram? I think that a line would be okay. I'm just going to make it a little thicker. On the chart color, red is fine. The scaling, though, we want this indicator to be on its own axis just to see what it looks like, especially because we're turning it into a percentage. By plotting a percentage, it has nothing to do with the price value anymore. And when I say that is that, I mean, we saw that Apple was trading at, you know, $140, was it $140, 140 something and change. But if the distance to the moving average is, you know, 5%, that 5% has nothing to do with 144. So we cannot use the same scale. So I would rather use it on a separate scale. And that's when it says here scale on the right axis. That just means that it's going to go on its own scale. I'm going to click OK. So I changed some of the properties. I'm going to verify one more time. Let's go ahead and take a look at this indicator on my trade station. Let's see, studies, add studies. I'm going to go here to exclamation JN. I think I called it percent distance from MA. That's what I called it. I click OK. And I plot it down here. All right, so let me go back to Apple, which is what we had started off with. And let's see. The moving average is 164. The closing price is 142. And you can see how my indicator down here says negative 13. I'm going to say that's a negative 13% from the moving average. So let's bring up a calculator to do the math. So I'm going to take 164.04, which is the value of the moving average, and I'm going to, what is 13% of that? Times 0.13 gives us 21.32 minus 164.04, which is the starting point. Let me do, so it's 21.32, 33. Okay, let's do that one more time. So it's 21.32. That's what 13% of 164 is. And we're going to subtract, you know, our starting point. What's happening here? I'm not sure. I think I'm trying to clear this out and it's not letting me. So let's do it one more time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go from 164.03, which is the moving average, and I'm going to subtract this value, 32.52. It's not 32.52. What did I just do? So 164.04. Oh man, I have to take a course on using calculators now. 164.04 minus, okay, there we go. 2132. 2132. And of course, that is approximately what the current price is. Of course, this is real-time prices, but you can see that the real time is 142. Okay, so when we look at this indicator over here, this is just measuring how far is the price away from my moving average. Now, it would help to have a zero line in here because it goes from positive to negative. Whenever the prices are above the moving average, you can see how the red line goes onto the positive side. So how do we create a horizontal line here at 0? In the Easylanguage code, that's one of the most simple things to do. And what we do is we create a plot 2, and we just plot the number 0. 0 here inside quotations is just a label. No, the fact that I write 0 doesn't mean that it's going to use 0. Whatever you put inside quotations is just a label, and you'll know exactly where that shows up when you're formatting the indicator. But the 0 that it's plotted is this one right here, the numeric value 0. I'm going to verify this. Let me go to properties, because I'm not sure if I go to the chart color. See, this is where the label appears, 0. 0 is going to be blue, which is okay. I can use maybe a lighter red and then verify again. So let me go back here to my trade station. Let me remove the indicator. When you make changes to the property colors, those changes are not applied automatically. So that's why some of the times, or sometimes I just remove the indicator and add it again. So this is percent distance from moving average. There we go. So that's our 0. And you can see how the line fluctuates between negative and positive values. So these are percentages. And you can see how far away is the price from that moving average. Right now, the value is -13. So it does give us an indication that we are below the moving average, 13% below the moving average. If we go to Twitter, which was the second symbol that we looked at, we can see that we're much closer. You can see how the line's on the positive side because the current price is above the 50-day moving average and is about 6% away from that moving average. So if you feel that certain levels are important based on a moving average, if you're tracking a 50-day moving average or a 100-day moving average or even a 200-day moving average, and you want to keep an eye on stocks that are approaching this significant level, then this would be a nice way to know how far is the price from that moving average. Of course, if I pull up the stock and I'm looking at the moving average, it's very clear that it's very close to touching that line. So that would be a very easy way to look at it, though, without having the need of creating an indicator. But what if you didn't know? What if you were looking for stocks that would give you some sort of edge or potential when they're approaching their 52-week high? Well, by creating this custom study, now I have the ability to scan the markets, not necessarily stick to the stocks that I'm looking at, but also, look at other markets. And if you're a stock trader, of course, the scanner is very valuable. If you're a futures or a Forex trader or whatever the asset class you trade, you can, plug in these numbers into a radar screen and see which ones are closer and farther away. I'm going to open up a radar screen window. Yes. So new workspace, radar screen, and give you an example. I'm going to use data. I'm going to add the NASDAQ 100. Okay, and I'm going to change the symbols here to daily time frame. I'm going to remove the top two rows, which is the label row and the index symbol itself. So these are just the 100 symbols. I'm going to add a column. And guess what? I'm going to add that column that we just created. This is exclamation JN, and I called it percent distance from moving average. So I'm going to add it, move it all the way down. And here it calculates. Now, of course, in a radar screen format, I don't need this column that plots 0. I mean, that's a very nice visual when you are on a chart. But in radar screen, I'm going to right click here, go to studies, then click on show hide plots and hide the 0 subcolumn. So now I have my radar screen indicator, which is using this long name. This is the reason why I used a short name, because you can switch your radar screen to a short name. Let me show you where that's done, because you can see that the name of the indicator will be the name or the title of the column. And if you make the name too long, then you're going to have a very wide column like I do right here. Now, changing the name to a short form, you cannot do that on an individual basis. I wish I would just right click and use the short name for this column. It's a setting that applies to all the columns inside radar screen, which I'm not a fan of, because I mean, these columns that are really nice here, like the last net change, they're going to be reduced even further with some sort of an abbreviation. But if you go to settings and click on page, go to the general tab, then under study settings, you have study display short name. I click OK. So it changes the names of all my columns to something short. Maybe this is the format you like. And now you can see that my column was changed to that short version that I had, which is %MA. Of course, it's not as descriptive as the one that I had, selected as the long name, distance or percent distance from moving average, but you get the idea. So here's my list of symbols being calculated. I can sort and see which one is farther away. We can see that Netflix is the farthest away from its 50-bar moving average. Now let me bring this chart over to where my radar screen is. I'm going to copy the window, go back to this other workspace, reduce this, right click, and paste the window. All right, I'm going to resize the chart. And bring the edge over here. There we go. On my radar screen, I may want to remove some of these columns that I don't need. And here we go. If I click on, let me link the two windows together. So when I click on Netflix, there it is. You can see that Netflix 50-bar moving average is 305. And the current price of Netflix is 170. Wow, Netflix has been beaten up in the markets. That's a pretty nasty drop right here from 350 all the way down to 250. So we can see the percentage down here, 44, that matches our percentage over here on our Netflix. The indicator, yes. Would you be able to copy it from the chat, Marcel? Because I can always copy and paste it in the chat if that's an option. That way you can get it, immediately without, waiting for me to send you an email. And for anybody that wants to use this code, let me go ahead and do that. So it's very simple code. Let me put it right here into the chat. Okay, so that's what the code is, and you can. If you need it later, Marcelo, just send me an email and I'll email it to you. But it's just a simple calculation that measures the distance of the current price to the moving average. Now, which one is closest? Well, if I sort in the other order, of course, I'm gonna see the ones that are farthest away on the positive side. So like, for example, craft is 5% higher than its 50-day moving average. If I wanted to know the ones that are closest to the 50, I would have to look at some numbers close to zero. So these are the two that are right straddling the zero line. So XL Energy, right here, it's about to cross that 50 bar moving average. And Amgen is right here sitting on its 50-day moving average as well. Although it's not the first day that it breaks that 50-day moving average. We can see that a couple weeks ago, it broke it on a gap down, but then it's been like straddling that, 50-day moving average for the last few days, which is interesting. So a couple more things that you can do here, because this indicator can also be used in Scanner. I'm using it right here in Radar Screen with 100 symbols. But if I wanted to maybe have a collection of symbols that are sitting right on that line, let me go here to another workspace. Let's go to Apps and click on Scanner. In the scanner, I'm going to create a new scan. I'm going to add. This will be percent distance from simple moving average. That's the name of my scan. I'm going to do all stocks just because that's the biggest universe. The field here, I'm going to do a price filter first. So I'm going to look at the closing price, and I want stocks that are between $25 all the way to 500. Sometimes I do this and I say, how many symbols would that return? Let me go ahead and run this before I even add any more filters. And I always go to the log. And you can see how the total universe is about 12,000 symbols. And with my price filter that I only wanted to see stocks from $25 all the way to 500, it narrows it down to almost 4,000. So I'm knocking out 8,000 symbols just by using the price filter 25 to 500. Let me go here to customize. I'm going to do a volume filter as well. I bet a lot of symbols will be dropped because of this. Volume average, and I want their average volume to be greater than 1 million. So I want these stocks to have something that is considerable, volume, some moderate activity, at least 1 million shares traded per day in average. I'm going to run this. I notice that now I'm down to 776. That seems like it's a manageable list of symbols. I'm going to run my scan. So let me go here to customize. And I'm going to use the symbol that I just created. How cool is that, right? I'm going to go here to indicator. And I'm going to do JN. The indicator is called percent distance from moving average. I'm going to click on OK. I'm looking at the percent itself, and I want the percent to be between, I'm going to say 1% and negative 1%. Let me see if this works. I haven't used negative numbers like that, but I want, symbols that are either above their moving average, but really close to it, or below the moving average and really close to it. So we can get examples like the one we just looked at that are pretty much straddling the moving average, or we can get symbols that haven't been, even close to this 50-day moving average, and they're experiencing this, approach to their moving average. Let's run this. So this is going to calculate that indicator that I just created on 775 symbols. See, the symbols are right here. And let's see how many symbols it returns. Now I can always look for the ones that have the highest percentages, either on the positive side and the negative side, but that would just give me the ones that are further away or furthest away from their moving averages. Maybe, you know, there is a strategy in that type of idea. Again, you know, this is open to interpretation and you can choose whichever interpretation works for you. Having the tools to be able to test that, you know, that's what matters the most. So this is taking, you know, its sweet time, which is understandable. Anytime that you use a custom indicator or something that's not even custom, something that's built in to TradeStation, but anytime you use a technical idea, and when I say technical idea, I'm talking about MACD, moving averages, anything that uses Easylanguage, this happens because all those calculations are going to be running inside of your computer. So that's the reason why my very first two symbols were price and volume, because could you imagine if I had, you know, filtered by my indicator on the 12,000 symbols, I would still be stuck at 1 or 2%, right? So you want to narrow down your list of symbols to something that is manageable. In this case, maybe it's a little bit, I went a little bit too big, but it's okay. We can wait here. All right, so it's at 55%. Some other things that I can do here, of course, you can stylize this indicator in any way so that you can see those numbers change. So let's see what I can do here. In my code, I can say if, copy this and paste. Sometimes I copy and paste so I don't make any errors. Is greater than 0, then set plot color of plot number 1 to cyan. Else, let's see if this works. Set plot color of plot 1 to magenta. There's no semicolon here, I suppose. There you go. So what I did is let me go back to my code and switch me to my TradeStation. These 4 lines of code control the way or control the color of your plot. We're saying that if it's greater than 0, we want to use cyan. Else, if it's not greater than 0, we want to use magenta. So now when I come back here to my TradeStation, not only it changes the color of my indicator, showing me blue or cyan on positive numbers and magenta on negative numbers. Take a look at my radar screen. It also changes the values or the color on those values. Let me know what's positive and what's negative. It just enhances the visual. Nothing, you know, it didn't dramatically change the study. It's just that it's easier to take a look at. Okay. And of course, since I made a change to the code in the middle of this scanner running this, I broke it. I broke the scan, but that's okay, because the second time that you do a scan, it should run faster because it already has data for those, at least, you know, the symbols that it was able to download data for. You can see that it's already up to 30%, and I did that very quickly. So it should go, I think it was in the 60%. You know, it's running pretty fast. And here's where it slows down. So I'm not going to make any changes to the Easylanguage yet. I'm just going to wait until this finishes, but I wanted to show you that you can stylize your indicator by, you know, selecting the color based on conditions. So this is almost finished. And we have 44 symbols. Perfect. We go to the results tab, and here they are. So they are, of course, between 1 and -1. We can sort these, you know, right here from the scanner. So right here we have symbols that are almost -1, and we have one symbol that is 1. Now I can copy these symbols, go here to my radar screen. Let me add a new page, but I can paste my symbols in here. I'm going to change the time frame to daily. maybe remove some of the columns that I did earlier, and I'm going to add that same study. All right, these are all. Now, one thing to keep in mind though, because something that stands out already is that I have some values greater than 2 or greater than greater than -1 and greater than +1, lower than -1. And the reason for that is because in a radar screen window, we're using data up until right now. So it's real-time data. The scanner, when you do a technical study on the scanner, and one thing that I forgot to do, I didn't even change the time frame here in the scanner. That was my mistake. I'm going to go to customize, because this is the whole idea was based on a daily moving average. But if I open up this, you can see, oh, this is using daily. Okay, perfect. Well, one thing to keep in mind is that when you use a daily interval in the scanner, it's not using current data. It's not using real-time data. It's using the most recent completed daily bar. And that's a bar that happened yesterday. So as the close of yesterday. But the nice thing is that, okay, the scanner gives me the symbols that were really close to the moving average as of the close of yesterday. I can, add those symbols to radar screen and see what happened today. So here is McCormick. It was really close yesterday, and it's still really close today. Although the break happened, a few days ago when we had this, huge red candle. Let's go to another one. Let me go. Okay, these are all the ones that let me sort by percent. Yeah, here's one that Constellation. See, Constellation was a stock, very interesting. And if I had run this scan yesterday as of close, I would have seen this, big drop in price approaching its 50-day moving average. And today, all of a sudden, it breaks it, and it's even 6% away from that moving average. So interesting way of looking at stocks and analyzing them. Edison International was using that 50-day moving average as a support until it broke it. But you can see, you get the idea. So this is just a way of me looking at different stocks that are really close to in this case, a 50 moving average, but you can make it any level that you'd like. Okay. Well, that was my class. I wanted to just give you an idea, create it in Easylanguage, do some modifications, and use it not only in charting, use it in radar screen, and also use it in scanning. And you can pretty much do that with any idea that you have. If you have these ideas that you'd like for us to take on and program in Easylanguage, you're welcome to join us next Thursday at 11:30, where we can talk to John, and he can help us, develop some of these ideas. Make sure that you email me if you want John to have something prepared for us. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. We have an afternoon presentation at 2. It's more like a webinar. It's not a masterclass presentation. But if you go to You Can Trade and go to the events page, you'll see that we're going to talk about commitments of traders' data. It is a topic that we've done in masterclass before. So it's going to be more like a review of that content, but it's going to be open to all TradeStation, the whole TradeStation audience. Okay, so thank you guys for being here today, and I hope to see you in a future class. And here's my disclosures. Always forget to put them up again at the very end. And for those that joined us late, my name is Jesus Nava, Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. Great having you guys here. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful afternoon.